Stop hunting. Start finding. Choose the AT&T Real Yellow Pages with complete ads and up-to-date local listings to find just what you need.
Travel to Spain or Orlando Avenue. The finest restaurant featuring cuisine from Spain is open for business, lunch, and pleasure. El Bodegón, our very own 4-star restaurant, is open for business, lunch, and dinner. This is a true gem when it comes to real Spanish cuisine, featuring dishes like paella. El Bodegón also has a great wine selection. Enjoy a 4-star cuisine from Spain today for lunch or dinner at El Bodegón.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine? We can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you every Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. on Bright House Cable 49. We have two personalities that are very interesting for you to meet tonight. Evelyn S. Rivera, former New Yorker, and she is the chairperson of the Parent Leadership Council. And we also have Holly Benson, who's running for the Attorney General. We'll start off with Evelyn. Evelyn, welcome to Hispanic Speak Out TV.
Thank you for having me here today.
The reason why we invited you is to talk about the city's bilingual program. There is, for us as Hispanics, there are major cutbacks happening in the community, and it's affecting our children. So, and the bilingual program was one of the major things that they're cutting back on. Tell us what's going on in that area.
Well, what's happening is that Orange County Public Schools have decided to cut down on the bilingual program to the point where they're only going to offer it from kindergarten to 3rd grade. Whoever comes in for a bilingual program, either after 4th grade, they're not going to have it. They're cutting the program from 4th to 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And it's very sad because according to the research by Dr. Virginia Collier, a student to be fully bilingual in both their native language and English, they need at least 7 years in the program. And what we are getting is that class size, we have to cut the program because of class size. You know, many years ago, we voted for the class size amendment. And this is the year, or 2010-11, where it has to be implemented. And so our students are going to suffer because of class size amendment.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you're looking at a child, you're saying that if a child comes, let's say from Puerto Rico or from another country, and they move into Central Florida, into Orange County, and let's say that child is going into the 4th grade. Now, naturally, if they come from certain countries, they're going to be totally Spanish language dominant. Mm-hmm. Puerto Ricans generally can take a certain overlap and they understand English, but that doesn't mean they don't need the support. So a child coming into the 4th grade who strictly speaks Spanish, what happens to that child?
That child is going to go into what they call shelter program. And what the shelter program does is that they will have an English-speaking teacher teaching them the curricular subjects, and they will have a paraprofessional in the classroom translating to that student so that he will comprehend what the teacher is saying. Contrary to that, the bilingual program, when you have a child that comes from, let's say, Puerto Rico, he will have a certain percentage of the time in Spanish. And let's say that he comes in and it will be 70% in Spanish, 30% in English. And as he goes along in the different grade levels, it will change 60% to 40% until it reaches 50-50, and then it flip-flops.
And up until what grade previously?
Well, before we used to have it from kindergarten to 8th grade, and the students will go to a school that will be housing all those students. Now we're not going to have that.
Do you think that You know, minority students in Central Florida have a very high dropout rate.
Yes.
Okay, not only Hispanics, but Afro-Americans have a very, extremely high dropout rate. Do you think the cutback in the bilingual programs are going to increase the dropout rate?
Yes, because if a student does not or cannot speak the English language, and if the students cannot master the classes that he's in because of the language, that student's starting to say, I'm a failure. I cannot go on. So when he gets to high school, he already has in his mind that I'm not going to make it. And if there are not services in place in there to help him out, how is he going to make it? You know, in Orange County, we got 29,000 students that speak English as a second language. Most of them are Hispanics. The other students go into a sheltered class, but the strategies that they use with those students are better, because those students that come from other countries, in their homes, the parents are really taking care of teaching them in their own language. What happened with the Hispanic community is some parents think that because the son or daughter say a few words or can maintain a conversation with somebody, they're using the street English, the street language. It's not academic. And what they need is academic English to be able to be successful in the classroom.
When you say street language, you know, like ghetto.
No, I mean like Spanglish.
Spanglish. Well, that's everybody knows Spanglish. I mean, it's like a rufo, right? When you're talking about right, rufo. There are words that Puerto Ricans use that kids, you know. But that happened to me too, because I grew up in New York, so I was using kind of both, you know. And you know, I also ran into those issues because they didn't have bilingual programs when I was a kid, so it was very difficult for me in school. When I went into the first grade, I didn't go to kindergarten, I went to first grade, I was speaking just Spanish. And they didn't know how to handle it, you know, because I was out in Queens in a white neighborhood, so there was only one Spanish kid in the class, so I didn't know what was going on. It took me a long time to catch on.
Yeah, and it's very sad because, you know, the Anglo community believes that we don't want to be assimilated, but it's the contrary. As soon as the students go into the school, they want to be like other students. The only thing that is holding them back is the language.
Well, that's a big issue. The assimilation concept is a big issue that many people are afraid of the concept. Hispanics have arrived here in such large numbers that they've created communities. Like, for example, in New York, we call that area from 138th Street all the way up to Fort Washington, up on Broadway, that area is called Little Dominican Republic. It's all Dominican. So people get sensitized that we don't assimilate, but they don't support the issue of assimilation and what's needed for assimilation. So we gravitate towards our own neighborhoods. We try to create our own neighborhoods so we can survive.
Well, let me correct you.
Okay, please.
The first ones that got here were the Spaniards. We were here first.
Here where? Florida?
In Florida. Florida is a Spanish name that Juan Ponce de Leon called. He arrived here at Easter time, and all the plants were blossoming, and he calls Florida, and he stayed Florida.
You know something? I wrote an email saying that to somebody today. I did. I sent out an email on the Hispanic plate, and the person wrote me a letter saying, why can't you be American? So I wrote him back a letter. This is a note on the email. This is what I said. First of all, St. Augustine is the oldest city in the United States,
correct.
Founded by Hispanics. Hispanics brought the first orange to Florida. The citrus industry
You're correct.
was brought here by Hispanics. And the name Florida, like you just said, is Florida. It means
it's Florida.
Yeah.
So Ponce de Leon was the first one to set up foot in this place.
Yeah.
So this is ours, whether somebody likes it
Don't
or
say
not.
ours. It upsets people when you say ours. But you know,
we were the first ones.
We were here 200 years before George Washington.
Yes, we were.
And you want to know something? I think because of the immigration issue, because a lot of people see the immigration issue and they think that all Hispanics are just coming in the last few years. And they don't realize that Hispanics come from different countries and came here at different times.
People do not understand that each one of us that come from a different country brings an enrichment to this community. It's not that we want to be away from everybody else. I think it's a matter of learning about each other, educating ourselves about each other. But what's so funny is that we just celebrated the Cinco de Mayo. Everybody loves to go out and celebrate el Cinco de Mayo. You go to the Spanish restaurants in the area, most of the people that go there are Anglos.
Yeah.
They love the rice and beans. They love the pork. They love
but those are the Spanish, but American companies own Mexican restaurants.
I know.
The chains.
I know.
You know?
Yeah,
So, you know,
and so it's kind of a contradiction.
It is.
On what goes on, because they love us, but then they don't love us. So
yeah.
it's a love and hate affair kind of thing.
Well, you know, it's a matter of education too, because a lot of people, like this guy who sent me this email, you know, he obviously doesn't know the history of Florida. You know,
But
so he reacts that way.
That's a problem that we have with our books. They don't give the story the way it's supposed to be, or the history the
Well,
way
you know
it's supposed
something?
to be.
I've been wanting to put up a big billboard, okay? And now I'm going to say it right here on television. I'm going to call CBS tomorrow, and I'm putting up a 48-foot billboard when Hispanics got here and what they did. So look for it. I don't know if it's going to be on 436 or 441, but you've given me the courage to do that.
No,
But
I'm
you're
just
gonna
giving
see
you
it.
the history,
It's gonna-
the correct history of Florida.
Yeah, well, it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get it up, but I promise there's going to be a billboard on either 441 or 436, and then you're going to see everybody go, wow. But getting back to the kids, when they cut back the budgets, is it because they didn't have the money, or did they redirect funding in order to spread out that money? What happened
Well,
there?
for many years, and it's still going on, the Orange County Public School gets a basic allocation per student. Okay, then they get an additional funding, what they call weighted FTE, to cover the expense of the students speak English as a second language. It's not only the Hispanic students, but any other student that come from any other country, Haitians, Portuguese, Russian, Afghanistan, whichever comes here. They get additional funding. There are only two types of students that bring money to Orange County. One is the speakers of English as a second language, and the other ones are those that are in special education. So they are the only two that brings in the money, other than the basic. It's in addition to.
Is that money being brought, in other words, if that money was there for bilingual programs, it's because it's drying up from Washington, or is it because they're redirecting some of the funding to cover other programs?
Well, in 1990, LULAC and a group of parents, and it started in Osceola County, they brought a lawsuit against the Department of Education and then Governor Bob Martinez, because the students that spoke English as a second language were being promoted and they were not prepared to go on to college.
Well, that may happen again with this. They're either going to
Correct.
drop out, or the dropout rate will encourage the system to pass them through, and then they will not be prepared.
And not only that, it's going to affect us, excuse me, it's going to affect us as a society, because if a student is not in school, what is he going to do with his free time? He's going to get in trouble.
Of course.
So we're going to be, all of us are going to be affected.
Yeah.
And they say that they might bring it back. I don't see how. Once you cut something, it's cut. But the funding is there. We got 29,000 students. We're getting monies in the millions of dollars to educate these students, and we're not doing this. What I found out is that in prior years, when they were getting more funding, what the principals of some of the schools were doing, they were getting more teachers for regular classes rather than buying the teachers that they needed for those students. So,
Well, okay, so whose fault is that? Is it one person's fault? Is it one group? I mean, where does this problem, whose doorstep does this problem sit at?
it's at the step of the superintendent.
So it's the superintendent that makes the final decision?
Yes.
Well, that causes a big problem. But, You know, I've learned in politics in Florida is a little bit different from politics in New York. It yields very much different from politics, and I learned that in the last month. So it's not what somebody tells you to your face; it's what they're doing when you walk out of the room.
Correct.
You know, you told me that third grade students are taking FCAT
Correct.
tests.
It's the first grade where a student faces the FCAT.
Okay, and how is that affecting the student? I mean, you know.
Well, for somebody that speaks English as a second language, if they have gotten here in first grade, they have 2 years that they don't need to take the FCAT. Let's say that they get there in second grade. They have 2 years to take the FCAT. However, what's happening is that schools are being rewarded if they are an A school. Mm-hmm. My view of the FCAT is that it's a test that it's needed to find out where that student is at, not to reward a school because they are an A school, but where is that student? And they should take that money, instead of rewarding the school, they should put it for those students that are not passing the FCAT. Because there are many students that do not test well, and so they're being retained. That's the other part. Students are being retained if they don't pass the FCAT.
What does the word retain mean for people that?
Well, the word means that they are held back.
Okay.
Now for the most Hispanic students, they have to pass with a level 3 in FCAT, and they have another test called CELA that a teacher or somebody from the district sit down with them and test to see how they are in oral, comprehension, reading, and writing. So he has to have a high enough passing grade in that test, in the CELA, plus the level 3 in FCAT, and level 3 means reading and writing and comprehending at grade level, and then they can get out.
Well, what happens to a student that comes into the third grade?
He's in a lot of trouble.
Because they're going to get hit with the FCAT.
Yes.
Is this affecting the health of students to be under that kind of pressure?
No.
No?
No, many students do not test well. I am one of those that I have to take a test and I just get all bent out of shape.
Yeah.
So can you imagine a third grader facing that? And now the legislature is going to be just to prove that students that take algebra, biology, geometry, and chemistry, they're going to have to take, remember the regents in New York?
Right.
They're going to have to take a test like that to pass the grade.
Mm-hmm. I remember the Regents in New York, but I didn't take a Regents when the Regents were in New York. We didn't take them until junior high school, I think.
Well,
I think ninth grade.
This is going for high school.
Yeah.
And now, you know, if you don't pass the FCAT in the 10th grade, I think you have 6 times to pass the FCAT. If you don't, they give you a certificate of completion, which is nothing. Mm-hmm. Now the GED is no longer valid in this state. Mm-hmm. Some attorneys 2 summers ago went through the whole program of the GED, and the GED is not valid in the state of Florida. You need to go through high school. In the certificate of completion, if you don't pass the FCAT, what it means is you cannot get a federal job, you cannot go into a trade school, you cannot go into college, you cannot get a federal loan.
Well, there's a lot of independent trade schools opening up. Like ITT, they teach you aviation. Another school might teach you video production.
Yeah, but they have financial aid, and
right.
That's those are federal monies.
Yeah.
If you have a certificate of completion,
you can't
forget about it.
You can't get the money.
You cannot get the money.
You can't borrow the money.
No.
That's a big problem. That's a
yes,
big
I
problem.
know.
That's a very big problem.
And you know, the sad part about this is that in the statistics that the Orange County has, 34% of the student population in Orange County are Hispanic. Mm-hmm. 30 to 32% are Anglo, and 27% is African American. We are at the top of the minorities because there's not a majority. We're part of the minorities, but we're the largest group. I will give you 5 years for that 34% to increase at least to 40 or 50%. Mm-hmm. So we have to teach our kids what they need to succeed, because they are going to be our leaders in the future.
Do you think that the political system, the local political system, is actually afraid of those numbers?
They might, but if they want to bring industries into this county, worthwhile industry like the Burnham Institute, you need to have a workforce that is prepared to get into those jobs. If that 34% goes up to 50, we need to have educated students to take over those jobs. And I don't think that we're going to have that.
Well, if the way things are going, it's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
It's going to turn into a major problem. I know Orlando and Orange County and Seminole, they're trying to make major efforts to attract new industry here. So what's going to happen? They're going to bring jobs. People are going to come from the outside to grab those jobs because their local people are not qualified.
That's right.
And crime will go up. Problems with the police will go up.
That's right.
And it'll just perpetuate a negativity in society that it's going to be reflected in the crime rate.
That's right.
That's a disaster waiting to happen. How do you see it going into the future? Any solution?
I suggested to them to have bilingual centers where these kids come and they will go to those schools that are prepared to teach them.
To deal with that.
Yeah, to deal with that. Specifically.
That's a great idea.
But, I've been shut down by the administration.
You know something? I think it's a great idea. When you say shut down, what does that mean? They just didn't accept the idea? Or are they looking as a money issue? Or?
They said, we got bilingual centers, but it's only K-3. We had some excellent schools here. Tildenville, we had Old Cheney, we had Chicas Elementary that were excellent with the programs that they had. We have a foreign language academy where the Vietnamese where the primaries.
Evelyn, I got to cut you off because this has been really good. And now we're going to cut to Holly Benson. Holly Benson is a candidate for the Attorney General of Florida. She just launched her campaign, and she is an interesting person to meet, and we're going to cut right there right now.
Hi, you're watching Speak Out TV. I'm Nicole Alvarez, and I'm here interviewing Holly Benson, who's running for the Republican candidate of Attorney General. How are you, Holly?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you today.
I'm so glad you were able to meet us to have this interview. First, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Attorney General.
Sure. I am from Pensacola, which is up at the other end of the state. I grew up there. I went to Dartmouth College for my undergrad, went to University of Florida for my law degree. I practiced law in Pensacola for 10 years. I served in the Florida House of Representatives for 6 years, and then I served as Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation for a year and 2 months, and then the governor asked me to serve as the Secretary of the Agency for Healthcare Administration. But anyway, there are a number of reasons why I'm running for Attorney General. There are a number of issues that are important to people across the state. But the short version is I'm running for Attorney General to make sure we put the bad guys behind bars and the good guys to work.
That sounds really good. What other issues are important to you as a Republican candidate for the next Attorney General of Florida?
Well, as I mentioned, for every family across the state, they are worried about the economy. With unemployment in some parts of the state reaching as high as 15%, they are worried about jobs and meeting payroll. They are worried that government is becoming more intrusive and finding new ways to regulate. We really need to cut back on government and allow entrepreneurs across the state to grow their businesses and make a difference.
How has your background in the Florida House and as a secretary of 2 state agencies helped you prepare to be the next Attorney General of Florida?
Well, there have been a couple of ways that it's really helped me. I have worked to figure out how do we reduce the role of government in people's lives. We have found that these days, with the economy being a tough issue for everyone across the state, that people are very concerned about the growth of government and government finding more ways to be intrusive into people's lives. As both a member of the House and as Secretary of 2 agencies, I work to reduce the regulatory burden put on the businesses across the state, and as Attorney General, I will use the lawyers from that office to find more ways to get government out of the way.
That's very good. What makes you stand out over all the other Republican candidates?
Well, there are a number of things that we've been talking about on the campaign trail. One of the most pressing issues these days is the health care lawsuit. They passed Obamacare up in Washington, and everyone is very concerned not only about what it means for health care for our families, but also for our state budget, and also what it means will be coming next from the federal government as a burden down on the states. Because I was Secretary of the Agency for Healthcare Administration, I know firsthand how bad that's going to be for our state. It will cost us at least another $1 billion. It will add 1.7 million people to our Medicaid rolls, and we won't be able to sustain that. But in addition, it's another mandate coming down from the federal government to the states that we simply can't support.
Okay. Other than the obvious roles the Attorney General plays, what are some of the things that, as the Attorney General, is responsible for that people wouldn't necessarily be aware of?
Sure. Well, it's very easy to label the Attorney General as the top cop for the state, and we do handle a number of criminal issues. But you have a whole other civil side of the office that can handle issues for businesses. We have to be out there watching out for consumers to make sure they're protected. We have to make sure that we stop antitrust issues. We will use our lawyers to figure out how do we reduce the regulatory burden on businesses across the state.
Now, with healthcare being a hot issue with the Obamacare around the nation, do you see healthcare as being one of the big issues here in Florida?
It is absolutely one of the most crucial issues for our state budget, for every family. We really need to make a difference. It's going to cost the state at least another $1 billion on a budget that is already stretched. Families across the state want to make sure we spend their tax dollars on schools and roads and programs that really matter. So it'll be an issue for the state. It'll be an issue for every family that is struggling to find affordable health care and affordable health insurance.
Now, let's talk about immigration. As hopefully the next Republican to be Attorney General, what would you do? What are your thoughts? What would be your actions?
Sure. This is an issue that's all across the headlines, and it's important to a lot of people. And we need to make sure that we sit down and have a thoughtful discussion about it. The recent law that was passed in Arizona has a lot of people very upset, and understandably so. They want to make sure that we target illegal immigrants, but not the legal ones. So we need to make sure that we bring law enforcement and community leaders to the table to figure out how we do it right. In Florida, when we had Governor Bush, he and the federal government entered into a memorandum of understanding so that our local law enforcement leaders could be part of the solution. We need to find a way to learn from Arizona's experience and do this together.
That's a really good answer. Now, is there anything else you would like our viewers to know about you or that you would like to say to them?
Well, one of the things that a lot of voters these days want to do is their homework. So it's nice that I've had the opportunity to talk with you today, but if they'd like to learn more, we have a website, which is www.hollybenson.com. So I hope they'll go to the website, learn a little bit more, and send us their questions, because I'd sure like to get their votes.
Holly Benson, for the next Republican candidate for Attorney General. You are watching Speak Out TV, and I'm Nicole Alvarez. Thank you for watching.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine we can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.